Hello everybody. I'm going to start to read a new class book. This book is called The Somerset Tsunami by Emma Carroll. I'm sorry, that's back to front. And it's a new book that I've got into the library, and I quite like the sound of it, and I hope you will like it too. I've read some other books by this author, and they're very good, and my children have really liked them as well. Let me read the blurb to you. Somerset, 1616. A sinking boat, a girl in disguise, a disappearing sea. When Fortune Sharp carves a boat from a tree with her beloved brother Jem, she's only having a bit of fun. But now is not the time for a girl to be drawing her attention to herself, and she is sent away to find work dressed as a boy. Luckily, a rich manor house is hiring. Yet Barrow Hall's inhabitants harbour dangerous secrets of their own. The suspicious owner is hunting for witches, and the house itself is a little too close to the sea. So, sounds quite interesting. So I'm going to read chapter 1. Okay. So there's an advert first, and it says, person for trial on suspicion of witchcraft to be held at the Spring Assizes in Glastonbury for the county of Somerset on the 12th of January 1616. So this was a time where if people thought you were a witch, you could be arrested and even executed for if people thought that you could do magic or you were a witch in any way. Okay, it seems really hard to understand that today, but people really did believe that there were witches, and that was against their religion. Okay, that dark magic. Of course, we know that there are no such things as witches. Okay, but people did believe that at the time. So innocent people were executed for being a witch, or people thought they were a witch, and they would go to trial. Okay, so this is chapter 1, a few months earlier, in which our hero's life takes a strange and dramatic twist. Chapter 1. We lived in a hamlet called Fair Maiden's Lane, which wasn't a lane at all, but half a dozen moss-roofed cottages cowering against the weather. For as long as I could remember, there'd be no grown men amongst us, just women, girls, and my brother Jem. As for fair maidens, there was Abigail, my elder sister, though she was only middling pretty. So some of these words are quite old-fashioned, so middling means in the middle, like a bit pretty. Our womenfolk were a capable lot, breeding pigs, catching fish, crushing herbs and birthing babies in the local towns and villages, and had a reputation for doing all of it well. Yet we were our own little community, bounded by the Severn Sea on one side, the Quantock Hills on the other. And because none of us needed rescuing like maidens in stories, had you believe, our hamlet's name came to be a fine joke. No harm was meant by it, at least not then. The first sign of change was a slight shift in the air, which I suppose was the coming of autumn, because it made goose flesh rise up along my arms. Then Jem, who at 15 summers was 2 years my elder, got taller as if he'd grown overnight like a magic plant. Every morning his breeches rose further from his knees, so that's his trousers. Where once he had been as soft as a fresh loaf, he was now all wrist bones and shoulder blades, and had a voice that squeak boomed when he spoke. That's because his voice is breaking. Mercy, brother! Grow any taller and the birds will start perching on you, I exclaimed one morning when he had to bend to avoid the ceiling beam over our heads. Come here and say that, Fortune Sharp, he threatened. Fortune being my name, though I was yet to discover why. We chased each other out of the house, ducking and squealing under Abigail's laundry lines, which sent next door's youngster pigs tottering to the fence to see what all the fuss was about. Our neighbour, Saddleback Sally, was known far and wide for breeding exceptional pigs. We ran on past leathery Gwens, who had skin as tough as hide from the hours she spent catching crayfish along the shore. The timber cottage opposite hers was home to Ruth and Jane Redfern, local midwives and clever in the way of herbs. So midwives are people who help women give birth. Before we knew it, we reached the last dwelling in the hamlet, Old Margaret's, with its dairy where she made delicious yellow cheeses. In the pasture beyond, she kept a herd of cows that our mother and her milking stool tended every day. Mother was paid well for her skill, and so we'd always been told to be polite to old Margaret. As Jem and I hurtled past, still laughing and shouting, old Margaret was out in her yard rinsing cheesecloths. "What's all this noise then?" she cried, flapping a cloth at me. "Anyone would think the devil himself was chasing you." I slowed down. "Haven't you anything more useful to do than tear around making mischief?" she scolded. "Sorry," I muttered, though I'd never been a walk on tippy-toes sort of girl, and old Margaret knew it as well as anyone. I'd grown up wearing boys' shirts and leggings, and my only dress was an ugly hopsack thing that had once been Abigail's. Unless Mother told me to wear it, it stayed stuffed in a dusty corner under my bed. She's a bit of a tomboy, maybe. Old Margaret turned to Jem. "About time you earned your keep and all." "Yes, mistress. Sorry, mistress," he said, so contrite I couldn't help sniggering behind my hand. Apologising again, we hurried on. A sharp left took us up over the common land before it dropped away steeply to the coast. If you followed your feet downhill through the gorse bushes, you'd arrive at a little brown sand cove where the river ran into the Severn Sea. It was my favourite place in the whole world, not that I'd seen much of anywhere beyond Bridgewater, but still. The beach was empty. Once Jem and I had wrestled each other to the ground, and I'd declared myself the winner, we fell apart to sit on the sand. Every day I'd find a reason to come down here, to stare at the ocean and smell the salt air. It came from Father, my special love of the sea. I'd only been 2 years old when a savage winter tide snatched him from the shore where he'd been out galatting for big fat eels. My one memory of him was how he slept at night, with the shutters open in all weathers, just to hear the waves. It brought peace, so he'd said. Usually it worked like a salve for me too. That means like it heals her, makes her feel better. Yet today I found myself mulling over our encounter with old Margaret. "Do you think she meant it?" I asked Jem, chewing the frayed edges of my thumbnails, "about us needing to be more useful?" At home, us children all had our tasks: collecting firewood, feeding hens, chopping herbs, growing vegetables, making candles, though none of it brought in any real money, like the saddle pigs or old Margaret's cheese. Jem stretched her his long spindly legs. "You know there are people watching us, don't you?" "Where?" I spun around, scanning the hill of common land we'd just passed over. "Not right now, you goose," Jem tutted. "Generally, I mean. It's been going on for a while, so Abigail says. They're riding as far as the crossroads once, maybe twice a day." The crossroads was about 1/4 of a mile from old Margaret's house. It was where the main road stopped and became a narrow track down to our cottages. "Who's watching us?" I wanted to know. "Our neighbouring landowners, apparently." "Who own all the land between us and Kingdom Come?" I finished for him. "What do they want with us?" "They're just looking, for now." This last bit, he said, in a wary, loaded way, for we both knew how rich these landowners were and that wealth meant power. These men decided the laws a magistrate might enforce and the punishments for breaking them. Not that we'd done anything wrong. No one here owed money or had thieved anything or done a murder as far as I know. Yet the thought of being watched unsettled me. Since Jem didn't say any more about it, and with the sea spread before me, I soon forgot it. I had wondered how the waves might look to someone in Spain, say, or even further away in a brand new country they were calling America. There were many different ways of seeing the same thing, as we soon found out, to our peril. So peril means to danger, okay? Something's going to happen to them. Okay, that was chapter 1. I hope you enjoyed that. It might be an idea to look up, maybe, if you have time, if you want to look up what life is like, was like in 1616. What did people look like? What did they dress like? Okay, remember, these people aren't rich people. They are everyday working folk. Okay, so they don't have much money. So it would be great to have some context behind this story. Okay, all right. Chapter 2 next time. Bye-bye.